and welcome to the second video in my Distress Ink series. This video, I'll talk about where to get started, where to go first for the colors that you need to kind of start creating these things and using these techniques and seeing if you like it, because you don't want to make a huge investment into something if you're not going to love it. So, yeah, I'll show you about that. So, the first ink that I ever bought was Walnut Stain. Now, I wouldn't exactly recommend this for the first ink that you ever buy. I think that you should buy the Vintage Photo for the first ink, because Walnut Stain is very dark. It's almost like a brown-black. Vintage Photo is a nice, just darker brown that's really nice for distressing edges, and it'll give you kind of a feel for the blending qualities of it. So definitely get Vintage Photo first. Then I started out with these three next, and I think these are really good colors to start out with. You have Chubby Shutters, Peeled Paint, and Broken China. And what's cool about these is that you can use them individually, but you can also use them to blend, do different techniques, and yet, you know, this blue will still show up very well over this green, but you can still blend them together very easily using the peeled paint. So these three, the Shabby Shutters, the Peeled Paint, and the Broken China, I think are great starters. And, you know, between all three of these, it's $20 retail, and you can probably get it for even cheaper than that, because most of these will be available at the big box stores, and you can use your coupons on them. Definitely try Michael's. They almost always have these standard colors, because they're from the first release that Tim Holtz did of his 24 colors, and then he released the 12 new, I believe, late last year. So the newer colors from Tim Holtz aren't as readily available, but these definitely are. So these are my first four inks that I recommend you buy. Then, to build onto your collection, I recommend that you have Tumble Glass. This is my favorite blue. I do like Broken China a lot, but I feel like I end up using this one more just because it's a pretty, you know, lighter blue. It's an aqua versus this one's a little bit darker. They blend really, really well together, so I just love those two together. And then you can also move into the reds and oranges, which I think you get the most impactful looks with the reds and oranges. A lot of my favorite cards have used reds and oranges in Distress Inks. So I suggest getting Barn Door and Wild Honey. And I know Barn Door is a new color. I'm not sure about Wild Honey, but they're just lovely colors, and they work really well together. You see it's kind of an orange and a red, so they blend really well together. And they're good starting ones for you in your reds oranges area. So those are the first 7 that I recommend you get. So then, moving on, let's say you really like the techniques you're being able to do with these inks. Here are the next 6 that I recommend that you get. We have Crushed Olive, and this is a wonderful green-yellow, and it just makes the transition between the yellows and the greens so much easier, and I just love this color. It's almost like a lime green. Think of it that way, but it has a lot of pigment to it. So that goes really well with the Shabby Shutters and the Peeled Paint. Then we have Mustard Seed, which is, it's a very bright, vibrant yellow with a little bit of an orange tint, and it's just great. It goes very well with the Wild Honey and the Crushed Olive, and the Barn Door for that matter. So that's a great addition, so Mustard Seed is a definite must-have. And then I have 2 more reds. The Worn Lipstick, which is a bright pink that's similar in chroma to the Barn Door. You can see they're both very bright, but it's definitely a nice pink. And then Fired Brick, which was one of the first Distress Inks that I had as well. But I just like the Barn Door a little bit better because it's bright and you can create some pretty impactful stuff. But fired brick really just kind of adds dimension to that barn door, and I love that. That's why I love these three colors together. And then for the last two that I would recommend getting to complete your first, well, 13. If you don't count the vintage photo, it's 12. So that's where I'm going with this. Definitely some tea dye distress ink, so that you have this darker brown, but this is good for when you're using white cardstock and you don't want the effect to be really harsh around the edges, or you can use these both in conjunction with each other and create more of a fading effect. So this is a really good one. It's just basically a lighter version of vintage photo. And I use this one, it's my go-to brown, because you can always add more. And you can always go back with the vintage photo and add more, but I like this light look at first. And then my last pick would be either antique linen or old paper. As you can see, they're pretty similar in color. Old paper is a little bit more gray, and antique linen is a little bit more green, which sounds really weird, but once you get using it, you'll understand what I mean. It just depends on the project that you're doing. And I use both pretty much interchangeably. I had antique linen way before I had old paper though, just because once you have one, you don't really need the other one. But once I got old paper, I've been using this one a lot more. So I would recommend actually going with old paper for your first 12. So we have our neutrals, the old paper, the tea dye, and the vintage photo. Our reds, the worn lipstick, the barn door, and the fired brick. Our orange yellows, the mustard seed and the wild honey. Our greens, crushed olive, shabby shutters, and peeled paint. And our blues, and tumbled glass and broken china. Of course, you know, these are the first 12, 13 colors, and so there are a lot more. There are 23 other colors, but I think these are a great starter, and then from this point you can kind of see which ones you want to use more. So I first got purples because I was just really wanting a purple, so I picked up the purples, and it kind of just builds from there. You can see how this addiction can grow pretty fast. Also, when you are beginning, I recommend buying one ink tool and one package of foams. Mostly because if you don't have a place to store them, which you don't need the craft spinner until you have, 7 tools, it's just easier to have one and switch it out. But, and then you'll be able to see as you grow in your distress ink capabilities, I guess you could say, you'll see how many tools that you actually need. Usually I use about 4 to 5 on a project. I just find it nice to have 8 because I don't like to switch them out that often. And they fit nicely on the spinner. So, definitely start it with one distress ink tool and one blending foam package. This comes with 2 blending foams, and this comes with 10. So, you would have enough to cover all 12 colors. And yeah, so that's a good place to start. And that way also, you might need to replace them every once in a while, the foams, because they do get worn out. Not that quickly, but it's always good to have a couple spares. Also, you don't need to buy this right away, but I use this mat from Ranger. It's their distressing mat, and it protects your work surface from ink and heat and everything like that. It's completely durable, and you can ink on it, and it makes it slide, and it's just great to use. It helps the whole distressing thing just go so much more smooth. As you can see, I have been using it with my red inks. So yeah, I just have the small one. I know lots of people rave about the bigger one, but I'm a person that likes to cut a lot on my work surface, so having the bigger one would mean taking everything off my desk, putting it on, and then taking it off when I want to cut something. So I just have this smaller one so that I can just fold it up and stick it to the drawer in the drawer next to my desk, and that works well for me. Plus this one, I think it's about $7, maybe $12. And once again, you can use a coupon on it. So it's really cost effective, and you can see if you like it before you buy the full size one. So yeah, so that is my little rundown of supplies to get started for distressings. Also, you might want to have a water bottle on hand with some spray, with some water in it, because that'll help with some of the techniques in the future. Also, I use Memento ink and Versamark ink when doing techniques with distress ink usually. So those are good things to have on hand. If you don't already, I highly recommend them. They're both very good quality products, and you won't regret having them in your stash. So those are the basics of distress inks. I'll be back soon with another video showing you some of the very basic techniques and then working up towards more of the advanced techniques with distress inks. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and I will catch you again next time. Thanks for watching.